The vast emptiness of space enveloped the horizon as it made its steady advance towards the enigmatic Mirror Nebula. Inside the spacecraft, the hum of the engines and the soft glow of the control panels provided a comforting, if artificial, sense of normalcy amidst the infinite darkness outside. Captain Sarah Hargrove stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the shimmering veil of the nebula displayed on the main screen. Beside her, Dr. Eric Langley, the mission's lead scientist, was practically buzzing with excitement, his fingers dancing over the data pad strewn across the console. "Can you believe it, Sarah? We're about to make history," Eric said, not taking his eyes off the readings. Sarah managed to smile, her focus unwavering. "Let's not count our stars before they align, Eric. Remember, we're here to observe and report, not to get lost in what-ifs." The rest of the crew, a blend of engineers, scientists, and support staff, moved about their duties with a practiced ease. Among them, Mia Thompson, the ship's pilot, and Alex Rivera, the communications officer, shared a moment of levity at their station. "Bet you 20 credits we find aliens," Alex joked, adjusting the frequency on his console. Mia chuckled, executing a series of precise maneuvers to adjust the horizon's trajectory. "And I'll raise you 30 that they'll be friendly and not the kind that wants to probe us in our sleep." The banter was cut short as the nebula began to loom larger, its colors more vivid against the backdrop of space. The crew gathered around the main viewing area, their faces a mixture of awe and apprehension. "All right, team," Sarah began, her voice steady. "This is what we've trained for. I want continuous scans on that nebula. Look for any anomalies and report them immediately. Safety is our top priority." Eric nodded, his gaze still locked on the approaching nebula. "The data we collect today could redefine our understanding of the universe. Let's make sure we do it right." As the horizon edged closer, a sense of unease began to creep into the excitement. The nebula, with its swirling gases and inexplicable luminosity, seemed almost alive. A vast cosmic entity observing them just as intently as they observed it. Mia turned to Sarah, a hint of concern in her voice. "All systems are green, Captain, but there's something off about the nebula's gravitational pull. It's not behaving as it should." Sarah nodded, her expression turning serious. "Keep an eye on it, Mia. Anything out of the ordinary, I want to know immediately." The crew fell into a focused silence, their tasks carrying them forward. The nebula's reflection on the horizon's hull cast eerie, shifting patterns across the ship's interior, a constant reminder of the unknown they were about to confront. "Here we go, Horizon," Sarah whispered under her breath. "Let's find out what secrets you're hiding, Mirror Nebula." As they crossed the threshold into the nebula's outer reaches, the familiar stars vanished behind them, replaced by the nebula's mesmerizing, mirror-like sheen. What awaited them was beyond their wildest speculations, a journey into the unknown from which there was no turning back. The horizon's interior was bathed in the otherworldly glow of the Mirror Nebula, its walls reflecting the swirling colors of the cosmic phenomenon just outside. The crew, now huddled around the main viewing screen, watched in silent wonder as the nebula's core came into view, revealing the mysterious, mirror-like substance that had intrigued and baffled them from afar. "Look at that," Dr. Eric Langley whispered, almost to himself, his eyes wide with fascination. "It's like nothing I've ever seen. The way it reflects. It's not just light. It's like it's reflecting space itself." Captain Sarah Hargrove maintained her composure, though her curiosity was as piqued as Eric's. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Mia, bring us in closer, but keep a safe distance. I don't want any surprises." Mia Thompson, hands steady on the controls, nodded. "You got it, Captain." Approaching with caution. The ship edged closer, and the mirror substance began to dominate their field of view. It was as if a piece of the nebula had solidified into a vast, reflective sheet, stretching out into infinity. The crew's reflections appeared on the screen, distorted and eerie amidst the nebula's luminescence. Dr. Langley initiated the scanning protocols, his fingers flying over the console. Initiating full spectral analysis. Let's see what secrets you're hiding. The data started pouring in, streams of numbers and graphs that painted a picture of the substance's composition. But it was the visual feed that captivated them most. A live image of their own ship, reflected back at them, yet not quite right. The angles were off, and the colors were too dark, too vivid. Sarah leaned closer, her brows furrowed. That's not just a reflection. It's like it's showing us something else. Eric nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. Alternate realities, perhaps? Different dimensions? This could be the discovery of the century. The excitement in his voice was palpable, but Sarah remained cautious. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to understand this better before we jump to any conclusions. As they observed, the substance began to ripple, the reflections distorting further, showing images that made little sense. Scenes of other places, other horizons, some engulfed in flames, others frozen in ice, and still others twisted by forces unseen. Mia pulled her gaze away from the haunting images. This is getting creepy. It's like looking into a million different nightmares. Alex, who had been quiet, spoke up, a hint of unease in his voice. Yeah, and I'm not sure I want to know how it ends in any of them. The mood had shifted from one of wonder to one of apprehension. The crew knew they were standing on the threshold of something monumental, yet potentially perilous. The mirror-like substance was no longer just a scientific curiosity. It was a gateway to the unknown, possibly to the very fabric of reality itself. Sarah made a decision. We maintain our position. Eric, continue your analysis. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we make any further moves. The last thing we need is to stumble blindly into a nightmare we can't wake up from. The crew nodded in agreement, each lost in their thoughts as they pondered the implications of their discovery. The Mirror Nebula, with its captivating and terrifying beauty, had promised them knowledge and discovery, but as the twisted reflections continued to play across the screen, they couldn't shake the feeling that some doors, once opened, might never be closed again. Eric, remind me again why poking the cosmic anomaly with a proverbial stick is a good idea? Sarah asked, half joking yet genuinely concerned. Eric turned to her with a grin that barely masked his excitement. Because, Sarah, that stick might just let us tap into the secrets of the universe. Or haven't you ever been curious about what lies on the other side of the mirror? Sarah raised an eyebrow. Curiosity killed the cat, remember? Fortunately, we're scientists, not cats, Eric quipped, turning back to his console. Besides, we'll be careful. We're just sending a probe through. What could possibly go wrong? Mia and Alex exchanged a look, a silent agreement passing between them that perhaps that was exactly the sort of thing one shouldn't say in situations like these. Every sci-fi movie ever starts with what could possibly go wrong, Mia whispered to Alex, who nodded solemnly. Alex leaned back in his chair, eyes still on the monitors. Just once I'd like to be in the sci-fi movie where everything goes right, and we all get a raise. Eric proceeded with the final checks, his voice steady as he briefed the team. The probe is equipped with cameras, sensors, and a small quantum communicator. If there's anything on the other side of that substance, we'll know. Ready to make history? Sarah gave a final nod. Do it. The crew gathered around the main screen, watching as the probe approached the nebulous mirror. The substance seemed to shimmer in anticipation, or perhaps it was just their imagination running wild. Mia leaned in, whispering to the group, Anyone else feel like we're about to open Pandora's box? Alex, ever the optimist, replied, Let's hope it's more of a treasure chest than a box of horrors. The probe made contact, and for a moment nothing happened. Then, without warning, the mirror rippled violently, swallowing the probe whole. The screen showed a brief flash of static before displaying the probe's feed. What they saw was beyond comprehension. The probe's camera revealed a horizon, but not their horizon. This one was twisted, darker, with flickering lights and an ominous silence. Is that us? Mia asked, voice tinged with disbelief. Eric, fascinated, leaned closer. An alternate horizon, or perhaps a reflection of one. This is incredible. The screen flickered again, showing brief glimpses of other realities, some desolate, others teeming with unrecognizable life forms, all distorted and unsettling. Sarah stepped forward, her command cutting through the awe. Eric, pull the probe back. We need to assess what we're dealing with before we go any further. Eric reluctantly initiated the recall sequence. As they watched, the mirror rippled once more, and the probe returned, coated in a thin, iridescent film that sparkled with the nebula's colors. Looks like it brought back a souvenir, Alex remarked, trying to lighten the mood. Sarah, however, was pensive. This is more than we bargained for. We're dealing with forces we don't understand. For now, we observe and report. No more experiments without a better understanding of the risks. The crew nodded, the gravity of their discovery settling in. They had touched the unknown, and the unknown had left its mark. The Horizon's crew had gathered in the common area, a space designed for relaxation and camaraderie, but the mood was far from relaxed. The events following their experiment with the mirror-like substance had left everyone on edge. The initial excitement had given way to a palpable tension, as the reflections revealed by the substance grew increasingly vivid and disturbing. Mia broke the uneasy silence, attempting to lighten the atmosphere. You know, when I signed up for this mission, I thought the most exciting thing I'd see would be a new type of space rock. Not whatever this is. Alex, who had been staring absently at his datapad, looked up with a half-hearted smile. Space rocks would be a welcome change of pace about now. Dr. Langley, however, remained focused on the data, his fascination undimmed by the crew's growing apprehension. This is uncharted territory, folks. It's exhilarating. Captain Hargrove, sensing the mounting fear among her crew, steered the conversation towards a more pragmatic discussion. Exhilarating or not, we need to stay focused. These reflections, or alternate realities, or whatever they are, could pose a real threat. We've seen enough to know that much. The crew nodded, the seriousness of their situation sinking in. Reports of unsettling sightings had begun to circulate among them. Crew members whispered of seeing their own reflections in the nebula, but twisted, engaging in actions so bizarre and horrific they were reluctant to describe them in detail. I saw myself, one of the engineers, Jonas, hesitantly began, but it wasn't me. It was like looking at a version of myself that had made every wrong choice possible. It was unnerving. Sarah listened, her expression somber. These experiences could be a result of the nebula's influence on our minds. We should consider limiting exposure to the substance and its reflections. Eric, ever the scientist, was reluctant. But think of what we could learn. This could redefine our understanding of reality itself. Mia interjected. Or it could drive us all insane. There's a fine line between groundbreaking discovery and a complete breakdown, Eric. The banter had faded, replaced by a shared concern for their safety and sanity. Alex, trying to cut through the tension, offered a suggestion. Maybe we need a no-mirror policy for now. Stick to good old-fashioned digital screens and avoid any reflective surprises. Sarah took the opportunity to rally her team. We're in this together. Let's keep communication open and support each other. No one goes near the nebula alone, and we double up on all monitoring duties. We don't know what we're dealing with, but we'll face it as a team. The crew, bolstered by Sarah's leadership, nodded in agreement. They were far from home, facing the unknown, but they were not alone. Together, they would navigate the mysteries of the Mirror Nebula, confronting the horrors it reflected back at them, and hopefully, find a way to protect themselves from its insidious influence. In the dimly lit control room of the Horizon, the crew stood before the main viewport, their eyes fixed on the nebula's core, where the mirror-like substance seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The spacecraft had begun to experience a series of unexplained malfunctions, each more perplexing than the last, and the mood among the team was one of growing concern. Mia broke the tense silence, her voice tinged with unease. Okay, so let me get this straight. Our state-of-the-art spacecraft, which has navigated through asteroid fields and solar storms without so much as a hiccup, is now being outdone by a shiny space anomaly. The horizon was drifting closer to the nebula, its engines mysteriously failing to respond to commands to reverse course. Dr. Langley, absorbed in the data streaming in from the sensors, seemed oblivious to the growing panic. Fascinating. The nebula's gravitational pull isn't behaving according to any known physics. It's as if it's selectively amplifying its force on us. Captain Hargrove, ever the pragmatic leader, was focused on solutions. Fascinating or not, Eric, we need to find a way to counteract this pull. Ideas? Mia was quick to respond as she attempted to coax some response from the engines. We could try rerouting all available power to the engines. It's a long shot, but if we can generate enough thrust, we might be able to break free. Alex chimed in, his tone serious despite the situation's surreal nature. And if that doesn't work, we may need to consider a distress signal, though who knows if anyone would be able to reach us in time. The suggestion hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of their isolation in the vast expanse of space. As they implemented Mia's plan, the crew worked in tense silence, each member focused on their tasks, the weight of their predicament pressing down on them. The engines roared to life. For a moment it seemed as though their efforts were paying off, the horizon shuddering as it fought against the nebula's unseen grasp. But then, the engines faltered, the power surge proving too much for the system, and the lights flickered ominously. Great, now we've upset it, Mia muttered, half joking, half serious, as she assessed the damage to the engines. Sarah, maintaining her composure, addressed the crew. We're not giving up. We'll find a way through this. We need to understand what we're dealing with. For now, let's focus on keeping the ship and ourselves intact. We'll need to be creative and work together to get out of this. As the endless expanse of the Mirror Nebula stretched out before the horizon, its once fascinating allure now a source of deepening dread. The crew, confined within the spacecraft's metallic womb, found themselves grappling with the strain of their isolation and the nebula's increasingly disturbing influence. In the mess hall, once a place of camaraderie and laughter, the atmosphere had shifted palpably. "Have you seen the latest readings?" Eric burst out, not noticing the mood. "The fluctuations in the nebula's energy patterns are unlike anything I've ever seen. It's as if it's communicating, but we're just not understanding the language." Mia and Alex exchanged a look, their concerns for Eric's mental state growing. "Eric, man, you need to take a break. There's more to life than readings and data. Remember sleep? Or having a conversation that doesn't involve the words fluctuations or patterns?" Alex tried to interject some sense into their friend's single-minded pursuit. Eric waved him off, his focus unshakable. "There's no time. Every moment we spend not understanding this thing is a moment lost. We're on the verge of a breakthrough. I can feel it." Captain Hargrove entered the mess hall, her presence immediately silencing the room. She had been a steadfast pillar for her crew, but the strain was evident in her eyes, the weight of command heavier than ever. "Eric, the crew's right. You're pushing yourself too hard. We all are. It's time we took a step back and reassessed our situation. This nebula isn't going anywhere, but we're no good to each other if we're falling apart," Sarah said, her voice firm yet compassionate. The discussion was cut short by a sudden jolt that ran through the ship, the lights flickering ominously. An alarm blared briefly before falling silent, the system struggling under the nebula's inexplicable influence. "Was that the nebula or just the ship telling us it's had enough?" Mia quipped, trying to cut through the rising panic with humor. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, took charge. "Let's get to our stations and check for any damage. We need to stay focused and keep the ship operational. Remember, we're a team, and we'll get through this together." In the days that followed, as they worked to maintain the ship and their sanity, the crew found themselves questioning not just their mission, but their very grasp on reality. The control room of the horizon was bathed in the eerie light of the Mirror Nebula, casting long shadows across the faces of the crew as they prepared for what Captain Sarah Hargrove had decided would be their most daring maneuver yet, to pilot the ship directly through the mirror-like substance in a desperate bid for escape. "All right, team, this is it. If our calculations are correct, we'll come out on the other side of this anomaly," Sarah announced, her voice steady, but not without a hint of the anxiety they all felt. Dr. Langley, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights spent poring over the data, nodded in agreement. "It's our best shot. The alternative is staying here, and we've seen how well that's going for us." Mia, hands already on the controls, tried to inject some of her characteristic optimism into the situation. Just another day at the office, right? Navigate through an uncharted cosmic phenomenon, emerge on the other side. Standard procedure. Alex, who had been quietly running diagnostics on the communication system, couldn't help but chuckle. "I'll make sure to add dimensional navigation to my resume, assuming we make it back to update our resumes, that is." The banter did little to ease the palpable tension, but it served as a reminder of their camaraderie, a bond forged in the depths of space and now tested by the unknown forces of the nebula. Sarah turned to the crew, her gaze lingering on each member. "This is uncharted territory, in every sense of the word. Once we start this, there's no turning back. Are we ready?" One by one, the crew members affirmed their readiness, their voices a mixture of determination and underlying fear. As Mia initiated the sequence to approach the mirror substance, the ship began to vibrate, a low hum resonating through the hull. The nebula's colors swirled chaotically outside, a mesmerizing and terrifying spectacle. "Here we go," Mia muttered under her breath, her focus absolute as she maneuvered the horizon towards the anomaly. The moment the ship touched the substance, reality seemed to warp around them. The control room twisted, the familiar controls and screens stretching and distorting in ways that defied explanation. "Is everyone seeing this?" Alex asked, his voice tinged with awe and horror as the laws of physics seemed to unravel before their eyes. Eric, ever the scientist, was transfixed. "Incredible. It's as if we're passing through the fabric of space-time itself. The theories were right, in theory." The ship shuddered violently, a sign that they were now fully enveloped by the mirror. Outside, the swirling colors of the nebula gave way to darkness, then flashes of light, revealing glimpses of other places, other horizons, each more unsettling than the last. As they emerged on the other side, the crew braced themselves for what they might find. The control room stabilized, the familiar yet alien landscape of an unknown dimension sprawling out before them. "We made it," Sarah said, relief and disbelief in her voice. "But where are we?" The view outside was disorienting, a world that mirrored their own yet was fundamentally different. The stars were wrong, the physics inconsistent. It was a reality untethered from their own, a reflection of what could have been or perhaps what should never be. The horizon had emerged into an alternate dimension, a universe where the familiar constellations of their home were replaced by a chaotic tapestry of stars and nebulae that followed no known patterns. The ship drifted, its crew silent as they absorbed the sight of this alien sky. "Anyone else feel like we just stepped through the looking glass?" Mia quipped. Alex, seated at his communications console, which now flickered sporadically with indecipherable signals, gave a half-hearted chuckle. If Alice had to deal with this, she'd have stayed in Wonderland. Dr. Langley, his gaze fixed on the sensor readings, was the picture of conflicted emotions. "This is extraordinary. We're the first humans to ever experience this." Captain Hargrove, standing firm despite the uncertainty, turned to face her crew. "We stick to what we know. Observe, adapt, and survive. Let's start by figuring out where we are in relation to our own universe. Eric, any ideas on how we can use the sensors to get our bearings?" Eric rubbed his chin deep in thought. "We might be able to calibrate the sensors to detect anomalies in the space-time fabric. If we're lucky, we could find a signature similar to the one that brought us here." As the crew set to work, a sense of purpose began to cut through the fog of apprehension. Their situation was unprecedented, but they were not without resources or resolve. Suddenly the ship lurched, a silent alarm flashing on Mia's console. "We've got company," she announced, her voice tight with concern. On the main screen, shapes emerged from the darkness, ships unlike any they had encountered before. Their designs were both beautiful and terrifying, with sleek lines that seemed to defy the principles of aerodynamics they were familiar with. "Looks like the welcoming committee?" Alex joked nervously, his hands hovering over the communications panel, attempting to hail the unknown vessels. The response was immediate but incomprehensible, a series of sounds and visuals that overloaded the system, causing the screen to flicker and warp. "Great. Not only are we lost in space, but we also don't speak the language," Mia muttered, executing evasive maneuvers as the alien ships began to close in. Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm and authoritative. "Let's not jump to conclusions. They might be curious, or even friendly. Eric, keep trying to analyze their communication. Mia, keep us steady, but don't provoke them. Alex, see if you can find any patterns in the signals that might give us a clue to their intentions." The crew worked feverishly, each member focused on their task, as the alien ships continued their approach. The tension in the room was palpable, a mix of fear and fascination at this first contact with extraterrestrial life. Suddenly the screen cleared and a figure appeared, its features humanoid but with subtle differences that spoke of an entirely different evolutionary path. It spoke, and this time, the universal translator found a match, turning the alien speech into understandable words. "Greetings, travelers, you are far from home." The crew exchanged looks of relief and surprise. Communication had been established, and with it, a glimmer of hope. Sarah stepped closer to the screen, choosing her words carefully. "We come in peace. We're explorers from another dimension, lost and looking for a way back to our universe." The alien's face was inscrutable, its expression giving nothing away. Yet there was a softness, almost a kindness in its voice that belied its enigmatic appearance. "You have ventured into a realm few can even imagine," it said gently. "Your journey ahead will be fraught with challenges, but know that you are not alone." The creature paused, its tone becoming more solemn. "However, be cautious, travelers. Those who cross over will find no way back to where they came from. So I must urge you, do not attempt to go back." With a flicker, the image vanished, and the alien ships retreated into the darkness, leaving the crew of the Horizon to ponder their encounter. "Well, that could have gone worse," Mia said, a shaky laugh breaking the silence. Alex, still staring at the now blank screen, nodded. "Definitely beats being vaporized by aliens. I'd call this a win." Eric, his eyes still on the sensors, was thoughtful. What did they mean with the part about not being able to go back? We need to find a way back, but also, we need to understand this place before we do. Sarah, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead, spoke with resolve. "We'll find our way home." But Eric's right. This universe, these beings, there's knowledge here that could change everything. Let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes next. After their encounter with the enigmatic beings of the alternate dimension, the crew of the Horizon had been left with more questions than answers. The ship, now on a course charted by a mix of hope, scientific deduction, and the cryptic guidance of their alien encounter, was homeward bound, or so they hoped. Mia navigated the ship with a newfound determination, her hands steady on the controls despite the uncertainty of their path. "You know, if we actually make it back, I'm thinking of writing a book." Lost in the Cosmos, the Mia Thompson story, has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Alex, who had been monitoring the communications array for any signs of the familiar, let out a short laugh. "Just make sure you dedicate a chapter to your heroic communications officer. The man who talked to aliens, I can see it now." Dr. Langley, his attention never straying far from his beloved data and readings, chimed in without looking up. "Assuming anyone believes us when we get back, we'll need evidence, hard data, otherwise we'll be the crew that went mad at the edge of the universe." Captain Hargrove, overseeing the crew's efforts with a watchful eye, smiled at their banter. Let's focus on getting back first. Then you can all write whatever books you want. Fame and fortune can wait until we're safely home. After several exhausting months spent researching this dimension, establishing contact with countless alien species, and deciphering the laws that governed this unfamiliar place, the crew faced a pivotal moment. Despite repeated warnings that a return to their own dimension be impossible, they couldn't help but feel compelled to try. There was a sense of unfinished business and a yearning for home that drove them forward. They knew the risks, but the desire to return, to see if it could indeed be done, was irresistible. The camaraderie among the crew had been a crucial anchor through their ordeal, but as the horizon approached the location of the dimensional rift they hoped would take them back to their universe, the mood turned somber. As they neared the rift, the ship began to shudder, a now familiar sensation that signified their passage between dimensions. The crew braced themselves, each lost in their thoughts as they faced the unknown once more. The transition was as turbulent as their initial crossing, the fabric of space-time warping around the horizon in a dizzying display of light and shadow. Then, suddenly, silence. The ship emerged on the other side, the familiar star patterns of their home galaxy shining brightly before them. "We did it," Sarah whispered, a mix of disbelief and relief in her voice. "We're home." "This was easy," Eric replied. "Too easy." However, the crew erupted into cheers, the tension of the past days releasing in a moment of unbridled joy. Mia let out a whoop of delight, and Alex hugged the nearest crew member. But their celebration was short-lived. As they began to re-establish contact with Earth, it became apparent that something was wrong. The communications they received were fragmented, filled with static and incomprehensible messages. "What's happening?" Mia asked, her joy turning to confusion. "Why can't we get a clear signal?" Eric, analyzing the incoming data, frowned. "It's as if we're out of phase with our own dimension, like we're here, but not fully." The realization hit them hard. They had returned to their universe, but their journey had altered them, setting them apart from the reality they had left behind. Sarah, ever the leader, took charge. "We need to figure this out. Eric, work on the sensors. See if there's a way to recalibrate our phase alignment. Mia, Alex, keep trying to establish communication. We're not giving up now." The crew set to work, their determination renewed. They had faced the unknown and survived, but their journey was far from over. The horizon, now adrift in the familiar yet unreachable expanse of their home universe, faced an unprecedented dilemma. The crew, once elated at the sight of their galaxy, now grappled with the stark realization that they had become specters within their own realm, visible yet intangible, present yet detached. As Dr. Langley worked feverishly at his console, attempting to recalibrate the ship's systems to realign them with their dimensional phase, the strain of their predicament began to show. This is like trying to tune an ancient radio to a station that's on a frequency we've never known existed. We're here, but it's as if we're broadcasting on a wavelength that Earth can't receive. Mia, hovering over the navigation panel, let out a frustrated sigh. "So, we're ghosts? Great." Captain Hargrove, standing at the center of the control room, surveyed her crew. "We're not giving up. We've come too far, faced too much to let this be the end. We're going to find a way to make them hear us, see us. We're going to get back." As their situation grew increasingly dire, the crew's efforts to find a way back to their own dimension became more desperate. They pooled all their knowledge and expertise, hoping to bridge the seemingly insurmountable gap that separated them from the rest of humanity. Time lost its meaning as days blurred into nights, each of them tirelessly chasing every conceivable theory and potential solution. Weeks stretched into months, and months into years, with decades slipping past them in a timeless void. Despite being trapped in the same starship, they never aged, never died, forever caught in an eternal limbo, unable to truly belong. And after an indeterminate expanse of time, they witnessed the last sun in the universe extinguish, leaving them forever adrift in a dark, endless cosmos. As that happened, Sarah sat at her desk, haunted by the weight of hindsight. Over and over, she whispered the same words into the quiet of the room, a soft, sorrowful mantra. We should have listened.